I also want to show you something that shows that there's so much flexibility with this database. So let's say that the DB JSON file isn't exactly what you're looking for. You can always update it. So you try to keep that ID because that one is going to be important. That gets automatically set whenever you create a new one. So don't ever change the ID. The ID is going to be essential when you've got an array of items. And we're going to update the posts. So let's stop our server. So do Control C. And now let's make some updates. So if, for instance, we want to set up another route or another link to something like test, and we'll call it whatever we want. So whatever makes sense. And we'll just put hello world here. So this is just to really illustrate the flexibility. And over here, we're going to get rid of this and we're going to say first name and then last name, or we could just do first, last. And maybe we could do add in one more, so company. And you can update these on the fly as well. And we are going to be showing you that coming up. So more on this later on. I just want to show you some really quick things to get you more excited about how this is all going to work. And I can get rid of the second one here. That was just one of those that we created earlier. So it looks like we're good to start it up again and fire things up again. So fire up that database and go back out and refresh it. And now that I've added in test, watch what happens when I go to test. We can see that that one pops out. If I go to posts, you can see that it's got all of these parameters. It's simply returning it as a JSON object. And it still has the ability to add into it, and that's where the amazing flexibility of this application is, that you can really customize it and play around with it and update the JSON and really have some fun with this. So go ahead and try this out for yourself, make some updates, and don't forget that if you do make some updates to the database, the structure of the database, don't forget to stop it and then start it up again. So it's the Control C to stop it. And while it's running here, you're going to see that all of those requests are being put through. So if I open up Postman again, so where's Postman there? So right now we're posting to the posts. So we can set it up as XWW form URL encoded. So now we can enter in some parameters. So let's keep it the same as the ones that we had. So test first, and let's do last, test, last. And then we also had company. So it's always good to keep within that same type of structure. Makes it a lot easier if you want to return back and make use of the data. So my company. And we'll see that now whenever I send the post, it actually updates in the database. So it adds it in there, first, last, and so on. So these were just some extra entries, so we can get rid of those. And we can see that it also adds it sequentially as well. So if I want to update that to 2 and save the database, if we stopped it and started it, otherwise it's going to continue after the last ID. So let me stop the database and we'll start it back up again. So Control C and then JSON server. So it's up and running again. And now this time when I send it again, we can see that it's taking the ID 3. So that's the important part about stopping and starting, because it re-indexes that database. Otherwise, it would continue to continuously add those values at whatever ID it was left off. So that was just a quick little bit about how to post. And of course, we are going to be doing more of this later on. But now when I refresh it, we see that we've got the 3 posts in there that are ready to go. So now let's start building out some of our HTML. So first of all, we can close off that part and let's build out our HTML. So first thing that we need a div here, and I'm going to use IDs. You can use classes or whatever way you want to make your selection. So I usually like to have a message area. This is my way to communicate with the users. And we're going to start with some simple elements here. We'll try load 1. So I'll show you just different ways that we can load data before we complete building out this application. So I wanted to also add in an event listener for load 1 so that whenever we click it, then we can fire off and we can do something, send a message, and so on. So let's set that up, and variable load 1. And let's do document. We can do get element by ID. We could do query selector. Let's do query selector for this one to spice things up a little bit. So load 1 and query selector, and you can add the event handler there, or you could do load 1 and add event listener. And the event listener that we want it to add is a click. So whenever it gets clicked, we fire off the function, and within this function, for now, let's just console log out that it works. So it's always good to console log out and just make sure that things are firing off properly or as expected. So let's go over to that index page, and let's open up our developer console. And now when we click this, we see that that fires off. We should also add in a little bit of styling. Now, I don't want to focus too much on styling, so this is going to be a quick styling job. We'll do a button and do a border around the button. So 1 pick solid, and we'll just do a black border. We'll also add some padding around there, so 10 picks of padding. Display. So display, and we'll do an inline block. And width of 100 pixels. So it's not just some quick styling so that we can distinguish this more as a button. Add in a class button. Refresh. So there we go. We've got our button. We can also center the text. So text, align, center. So refresh. So we can add additional buttons as well, and they're actually going to look like buttons. So we click this, and we see that everything is working. So we're ready to move on to our next step, and that's going to be to make the AJAX call. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're simply going to connect, and we're going to send a request over to get some of that JSON data from the database. So that's coming up in the next lesson.